right, before us we have a position that I've submitted to the amazing new ChessDojo problem database. This database is not necessarily, somebody to move and win. It's human positions where a human feels like a best move was played. Doesn't necessarily mean like you winning the game after. Maybe you're getting a small advantage. Maybe you're just hanging in the game. You don't know, right? That's one of the amazing things about what we're doing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is if you want to try to solve this on your own, you can just try now, or you can try after I say a couple words about the general dynamic of the position. Okay, so first of all, you might know I do a lot of analysis of my own games. That's how I believe everyone should improve. And in particular, I know that's the way for me to improve. And so I was analyzing this game that I played against, I think, around a 2100 a couple months ago. I'm backed up with my own analysis. In any case, it's a very interesting analysis. And I thought of my student, James Altucher, in this position, and I thought it would be interesting for him to try. And since I was going to show it to him, I said, hey, let's make a short video about it. So first of all, let's say that Black has played for b5 and has a very simple idea to bust white open with b4. And what we can say is that in positions with opposite sides castling, the initiative is the most important thing in the position. And at least visually, it seems like Black has the jump in this, and that the a3 pawn is not a friend to white because it's going to help me pry open the position. We call that a hook or a lever. Okay, so that is why white changes the nature of the position with e4. And I think forced. He can't just sit around and let me pop him open. He's got to change the nature of the game. So the question is then, what do I do? And stop if you want to consider it. I'm about to say a little bit more. The basic question is, should I play d takes e4 or should I play knight g4? Okay, so here we go. The move knight g4 is what I'm going to advocate for. By the way, I haven't looked at this with the computer, and this is my human analysis of the position. For me, that's far more interesting for myself and also hopefully for you. You might also choose to challenge me in my judgment of this move. Fine. I encourage you, though, to do it at least first without a computer, to do it by yourself. Okay, so d takes e4. Knight takes, I think I got to take. He takes. And now I have to probably play either knight d5 or bishop d7. In general, though, I think at some point I need to play knight d5. And when that happens, the guy can take and maybe play knight c3, and maybe he's alive. Okay? Now, it's an interesting question, like, well, what do you mean, Cry? Maybe he's alive? Well, I don't want him to be alive. I don't think he deserves to be alive. And I want more. Okay? So this is, by the way, nothing for Black to complain about, but I'm just not sure that he's got anything special. Right? And on knight d5, he could take, but also the move g3 is kind of interesting. Getting a little friction on the h4 pawn and maybe putting the knight here later. Similarly, and it could take on d5 as well. Similarly, on bishop d7, we might play something like g3. And the position, I feel, is hard to judge. Okay. Now, the reason I thought about James at this moment is I did a video, partly inspired by my work with James, it was called the Road to 2100 using the ChessDojo training program, which I'm going to link to here. Now, by the way, other YouTubers, they always just point and the video magically appears. So I don't know if it's actually going to magically appear, okay? I don't know how they do it. In any case, it's going to appear here. And in that video, I kind of took him to task for what I feel is a common mistake at the level below 2300, which is an insensitivity to the poor piece. And what happens here is I am going to get a bad piece. So I feel at the very least I must explain myself about what's going on here. Okay. Now, obviously, the knight is being a nuisance, and knight f2 is threatened, and I'm at least for the moment tactically preventing e5 because I have queen h6. Okay. Now, very tricky position, right? And white plays rook df1. Now, one of the things about this position that I had to have some cojones on, okay, is that on rook f1, I was intending to take this thing. And it's a little insane to be taking pawns which might be opening lines to your king, but the knight is still not gone. He's like, when I take the pawn, I'm doing a couple things. I'm preventing the knight from getting kicked, and this guy, if I take this guy, he might be alive, right? And especially if he's incommunicado with my bishop on c8, okay? So I think I analyzed this. I said this was a clear advantage to black, but it would still take some nerves, let's say, to play queen h2. So we're going to see, I'm going to get a bad knight, but the first concession I get from white is I get him to put his rook on d1 to f1, which is not where he wanted to go. Okay, the next concession is I get b4 in now, before he achieves e5. Okay, because if e5 now, it doesn't work because I say check, and then I'll take his knight. So I get to open the lever. That's the next advantage I get. Okay, but now h3 and knight h6. And I thought of you, James, buddy. I was like, because I knew this position could happen when I played knight g4, and I said, oh man, if I lose this one, the shame, James is really going to give it to me, right? Now, by the way, I want to back up a little bit and say, rightly or wrongly, I really liked my position here. I feel like I had the jump. So I did, and sometimes this can backfire, but I really did believe in black's position, and that encouraged me to go down this road with knight g4. And I saw the concessions that I was getting. So my king is better in this position. But I have one problem, my friends. I got myself a terrible, terrible knight. Okay. Now, I do believe black is clearly better. Now, when we say clearly better in a position like this, it usually means someone's winning. So it's a human perspective to say clearly better, because whoever has the initiative in this position is going to win the game. Okay, and definitely my king is substantially better than my opponent's. So here, my opponent, I think, makes a mistake that relates to the video that I did with the road to 2100 and James. He plays king b1, and one of the things I just want to say as a dynamic of the position that's important to understand is that white's natural plan here would be to play e5 and f4 and f5. But the problem for him playing e5 at this point is that my knight now has something, I'm giving him something to worry about, namely maybe he comes back into the game with effect. And so I think c5 is a very strong move, and I'm shattering the center. And here's a sample variation. And I would say white is lost. Well, I know white is lost. The rooks are coming to the c file, and my knight is doing something. That's the most important thing. So when we think about the position, right, go back here to this knight h6, I have all the trumps in the position, but I have a bad knight. So a way that I can rationalize this knight is I can say to myself, in the same way you sacrifice a pawn for the initiative, and again, the initiative is more important in positions with opposite sides castling. In the same way you do that, you sack a pawn for the initiative. Here, I'm sacrificing the mobility of my knight for this initiative. And I get some other bonuses, namely, e5, his most natural plan, is not a good idea for him here. Okay, now he makes an instructive mistake that I don't capitalize on. He plays king b1, and what's the correct move for him? The correct move has to be f3. And here, intention has to be, oh, maybe I can survive the initiative because the knight on h6 is poor. Now, we're going to come back to this because essentially I allow him to transpose to this f3 move. What should I do? Oh, come on, cry. Take on f5, take on e4, and then bring your knight in, boss. So, for example, of course I should have taken this. He's letting my knight in. And I can play rook b8 here. Winning, honestly, because then I'm going to get a piece to f5. Everybody's coming to the party. Everybody's working. And on bishop e4, again, I don't think he should be taking that pawn at all. Boom! f5, knight h6 is working. So terrible misjudgment on my part, but I want to explain psychologically, it's a little interesting. I played it instantly. Is that, when I sacrificed my knight, as it were, the intention was always to play rook b8. That's one of the things that I've been dreaming of forever, of b5, b4. And Kahneman talks a little bit about this as the endowment effect, in that I'm holding this precious thing in my hand, namely the b file, and I want it. I really want it. And of course, I should be thinking about my bad piece first, okay? And this allows him to organize f3. So we could essentially transpose to what he could have had in the game. And so that's why we could still, even though a mistake has been made on both sides, we're still into the fundamental issue we have in the position, which is, dude, did you blow it, or do you have enough juice to get the knight out? And so a very interesting sequence happened. Bishop e6, knight c1, not dumb. He's fixing his piece. The knight on c3 was not great, and he's trying to make it into a defensive superstar on c1. Okay, so black has to have a plan to get the knight out, right? And so I played rook b7. And then the point is, by threatening rook eb8, I basically force white to bring the rook back. You say, well, why is that a big deal? Because the rook is not looking at the f5 square. You're like, what? What are you talking about? Well, now I go pop, pop, pop. And what's the point? My knight is coming out. I'm getting the knight out, right? If ef, I just played bishop f5. He can't take twice because my beautiful b file pressure on b2. In the game, the thing I was most concerned with was knight f4, just because that looked kind of scary, the thing I felt like I needed to calculate. We could also think about e5, and this is a nice variation. Knight d5, threatening knight e3. Let's say queen d2. f4, thank you very much. What's going to happen? Knight f5's coming, and then that knight is going to be a genius. He's going to land on e3. I think this will either... I put it down as clearly better for black. My sense is probably objectively winning. I like to be modest with these judgments. Okay, so f5 happened. Knight f4, I'll show a couple more moves. Pop, bishop f5, beautiful. Now, I want to stress, I also made a concession in that I opened my king a little bit by playing f5, but it was absolutely necessary for me to do this. Okay, I think black, though, because he has the jump, okay, and every piece is basically working, that I should be winning this. Now, I did play a weenie move here. James, I'm sorry. I should have played knight b5. I played queen b5, and I say I'm clearly better after queen b5. But I should have played, let's just show the nice move. You should have played cry, okay? Why knight b5? To fix your piece, boss. To fix your piece. I put this, by the way, in the Dojo training database too as a training position. And the key variation you got to see here is pop, check to the miserable king. If king a1, queen a6 is all over. Here, 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 here. Rook c2 is forced because we got this genius thing happening. And I have a bad feeling that I stopped my thinking in this position. If I could have pushed myself a little further, knight e4 is definitely winning. And then I've got rook b2 as a threat. I've got rook b3 as a threat. Knight f2 as a threat. Maybe a sample variation would be pop. And then pop. And then check to the miserable king. Check to the miserable king. And then the queen's going to go, right? Okay, so I put a little bit more annotation. By the way, the full game you can see on our website under a new tab called Sensei Analysis on the training the training program drop-down menu. So that's the thing I've got, and I'm putting my games up there. I'm hopefully getting David and Kosti to put up their games as well. And again, the void that I wanted to record this was for James as an example of course, you want to be super sensitive to the bad knight. But where it gets interesting is when there are exceptions to the rule. And here, right, it's like I'm sacrificing the mobility of my knight for other strategic games. So that's, the exception to the rule is oftentimes the interesting thing which helps show the importance of the rule in the first place. Okay, I'll leave it there. Bye.